Welcome to another episode on the Joel Wright 2 channel. Today we're going to talk about party flight suits. Those colorful flight suits that were worn by American flight crew during the Vietnam War in Southeast Asia. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the Vietnam era flight suits that I have in my possession that were actually worn by my dad and my father-in-law. The colorful party suit had its origins in 1967 with the 357th Tactical Fighter Squadron at Tak Le Royal Thai Air Base. This was in response to the black-dyed flight suits that were worn by members of the 8th Tactical Fighter Wing at Ubon Royal Thai Air Base during social events. The 357th wanted to do something more colorful, so they essentially invented the party suit as we know it that generally corresponded with the squadron colors. Now, this tradition of colorful party suits became so popular that the tradition spread throughout Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. To the rest of the Air Force units in Thailand, it spread to Air Force units down in South Vietnam, and kind of spread to other air bases throughout the Far East. Now, that little history of the party flight suit comes straight from the Air Force Museum. So if you have any disagreements about who actually invented the party flight suit, take it up with the Air Force Museum. Now, the party flight suit obviously wasn't a real flight suit. You didn't wear it on a mission. It was made out of cotton. They were typically made by local sewing shops that you could find all around air bases in Thailand or in Southeast Asia around U.S. air bases. As I said before, they generally corresponded with the squadron colors. The party suits were worn strictly on base and for social occasions. Typically at parties where the squadron would welcome new flight crews and say goodbye to flight crews that were finishing up their deployment going back to home stations. The flight suits would also have usually humorous patches or morale patches that you wouldn't typically wear on a real flight suit. So in general, the party flight suit was meant to foster camaraderie and esprit de corps among the squadron in a very stressful wartime situation. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the party flight suits that my dad wore. My dad flew combat in the F-105 through most of 1969, a little bit into 1970. He was stationed at Tak Le in Thailand, and he initially was with the 354th Tactical Fighter Squadron. The party suits that they wore, the 354th, were blue. Here's a photo of my dad in his blue party suit at a squadron function sometime in early 1969. Here's another photo of my dad in the same blue party suit in front of F-105D 61-0071, a plane in which he flew 2 of his 140 combat missions. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that blue party flight suit because it has not survived the years, at least not intact. Now, later on in 1969, my dad transferred over to the 357th Tactical Fighter Squadron at Tak Le. This is the very squadron that invented party flight suits. And I happen to actually have his original party flight suit from the 357th right here. It's obviously yellow. It's got sort of the ubiquitous Yankee Air Pirate flight patch that a lot of pilots wore on these party flight suits. He's got an F-105 patch here, the 357th patch here. Now, in 1969, he would actually have worn Lieutenant Colonel Lee's. He actually these Colonel Eagles he actually put on this flight suit much later. So the Colonel Eagles are not original to the flight suit. Now, unlike the blue flight suit he wore with the 354th, I don't have a picture of my dad wearing this flight suit. However, I do have a picture of me wearing this flight suit at an Air Force function. So in 1994, I believe, when I was stationed at Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina with the 609th Air Intelligence Squadron, our commander hosted a 60s costume party. So I decided to go as a Vietnam-era fighter pilot. So I asked my dad, hey, can you send me your party flight suit so I can wear it to the costume party? So he sent me this very flight suit, plus his 357th hat. There's an ascot that goes with this flight suit that I don't have with me right now. So I wore that to the costume party. My father-in-law, Don Jones, also flew combat during the Vietnam War. He was stationed at Udon Royal Thai Air Base in 1970 and 1971. He flew the RF-4 and was assigned to the 14th Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron. This is his party flight suit. This actually belongs to my mother-in-law now. This is actually a short-sleeved version of a party flight suit. It's got the, of course, the obligatory Yankee Air Pirate patch that you see on all of these flight suits. It's got his squadron patch, 14th Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron. He was a captain at the time when he was stationed there. Again, like all these flight suits, they were made locally at seamstress shops, on or near the bases. Party flight suits weren't restricted just to active duty flight crew. A lot of pilots had party flight suits made for their wives. And I have an authentic Vietnam era party flight suit that belonged to my mom that my dad had made for her. This is in a nice powder blue version. This is my mom's party flight suit. Of course, it's got the F-105 patch. Again, the Yankee Air Pirate patch. The rank insignia is kind of cute. It's actually little hearts, little silver hearts for the rank. Now, what's a little unusual about this party flight suit is the unit patch that's on here. This patch is not a fighter unit patch. This is the patch for the 319th Bomb Wing out of Grand Forks Air Force Base, North Dakota. Grand Forks was where my dad was stationed at in 1971, 1972. He was the deputy commander of operations there. So I'm not sure why the 319th patch was put on here. This was obviously put on in the early 70s. I don't know if my dad was trying to introduce the culture of party flight suits to the SAC world at Grand Forks. I'm not sure why that bomber patch is on here. But this is a genuine Vietnam era spouse party flight suit. But the best party flight suit belongs to my wife. When my father-in-law was stationed in Thailand in 1970, 1971 flying combat, he had two little tiny party flight suits made for my wife, who was 2 or 3 years old at the time, and then my wife's older brother. So when my father-in-law got back from flying combat, he gave my wife this super cute, tiny little party flight suit. So it's got the 14th Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron patch here. It's got little captain bars on here. It's got my wife's name, Windy, little pilot wings. There's an RF-4 patch on the sleeve. It doesn't have Yankee Air Pirate on here. But here are a couple of photos of my wife wearing this super cute little party flight suit. Isn't this the most precious thing you've ever seen in your life? All right, so that concludes this little video on my collection of genuine Vietnam era party flight suits that were worn by members of my family. So I hope you enjoyed that little episode. Thanks for watching.